Tonight on Bridge City News, the Toronto man wanted in connection with shooting a 35-year-old Lethbridge man has been arrested in Saskatchewan. Alberta now has at least 7 confirmed cases of COVID-19. The patients are all recovering in isolation at home. And volunteers from Samaritan's Purse are helping survivors of last week's devastating tornadoes in Tennessee put their lives back together.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Canadian markets were bruised and battered today on all fronts as the collapse of oil sent shockwaves throughout the country. Stocks plummeted 10%. That's the biggest drop since 1987. The Loonie weakened and government bond yields plunged. With news that Saudi Arabia will increase output to 15 million barrels a day, oil dropped almost $10 to just over $31 US per barrel. The S&P 500 and TSX both took dives over 1,000 points today amid coronavirus fears in the oil war that's taking place. The sell-off forced Wall Street to halt trading earlier today.
The coronavirus fear and panics and the news over the weekend as that continues to spread. And the double whammy has been the oil issue as the Saudis, are significantly increasing production and especially really going aggressively after pricing. Oil collapsing down as much as 30% combined with the coronavirus fears. That is just such a difficult 1-2 punch for the market that was already sort of teetering to hit. And I think that's really been a perfect storm that you've seen develop this morning. Yeah, I think if you look at the travel area, especially airlines, cruises, those are down significantly because of less bookings and because of the fear out there. And also the technology sector. If you look at the worries about the supply chain, the ripple effect, we're seeing that across semiconductors, across Apple, Microsoft, and many of the core tech names. Even Tesla is another one in terms of auto demand, specifically out of China.
A complete look at those markets is coming up in business news. The Toronto man wanted in connection with shooting of a 35-year-old Lethbridge man in early February has been arrested in Regina. Police say 29-year-old Mohammed Omar Deblawe was picked up on an unrelated drug search warrant. Deblawe was also charged with second-degree murder and the February 8th death of 32-year-old Mohammed Makran in Edmonton. According to police, Makran was shot and killed in an apartment in northeast Edmonton, while the 35-year-old Lethbridge man was found dead inside of a home on University Drive. Police say he was targeted and the two were known to each other. Deblawe will be transported to Edmonton to face charges. A judge in British Columbia found Gabriel Klein guilty of second-degree murder and aggravated assault. It stems from an attack more than 3 years ago involving 2 students at a high school in Abbotsford, BC.
The justice certainly made the right decision here, in our opinion, that this was second-degree murder. It was clearly intent. Gabriel Klein had the clear intention to murder both girls and succeeded with murdering Letitia Reimer. So, we're now awaiting sentencing, and from Letitia's mom, Ellie, she writes, "I'm thankful that this phase is now wrapped up, and we'll wait to see what the sentencing will be. However, the people who are really serving the sentence are those of us who no longer have Letitia in our lives." The family, this is no joy for the family today. This is just one more step in the journey. If there's any sort of solace that everyone can have is that the justice made the right decision with the facts that she had, and this murderer will now serve some time, we assume.
Alberta now has 7 confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus. One of the confirmed cases is a man in his 40s from the Edmonton area. Although he recently traveled to the United States, health officials say his infection is more likely to have come from a travel companion who had been a passenger on the Grand Princess cruise ship. The companion is now a confirmed case in British Columbia. The cruise ship is heading to a port in California with 237 Canadians on board. So far, 2 passengers and 19 crew members have tested positive for the virus. Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, says the 7th confirmed case is a woman in her 50s who also returned from a cruise on March 4th.
Her symptoms started after her return. She was tested yesterday at the Calgary Assessment Centre, and her test came back positive late last night. All 3 new cases are in isolation at home and are expected to make a full recovery. These cases are examples of public health in action. Over the weekend, countless hours have been put in by our staff all over the province to make our system work. I particularly want to highlight the incredible work done to get assessment centres running over the weekend expanding capacity at HealthLink, and tracing contacts of cases. I want to make special mention of our provincial public health laboratory, where capacity for running tests for COVID-19 has dramatically increased.
Across Canada, at least 69 people now have COVID-19, with 27 confirmed cases in BC, 34 in Ontario, 4 in Quebec, and as you've heard, Alberta now has 7 confirmed cases. With the coronavirus arriving in our province, there's a greater chance of contracting the virus if you do not practice good hygiene. Seniors can be especially susceptible to getting the coronavirus. The executive director of the Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization, Rob Miyashiro, says he plans to educate seniors on how they can best protect themselves from getting COVID-19.
What we're going to do, and we're in the process of, is gathering as much information as we can from Alberta Health Services, Health Canada, and the World Health Organization. We're going to create some information posters and put them all over the building, what to look out for. Emphasize washing hands. That's the biggest and best thing that people can do. If you're going to sneeze into a napkin, and then wash your hands. We're lucky we have hand sanitizer dispensers all over the building. People need to use those. We're not medical professionals and we don't pretend to be. So if there are questions that we can't answer from the information available, we'll get the questions answered somehow. More of our members are computer savvy now, so they can look up information as well.
Miyashiro hopes that seniors in our region will heed his warning seriously and take the necessary steps to protect themselves from the coronavirus. British Columbia is activating its provincial pandemic plan to deal with the coronavirus. BC Premier John Horgan says a committee of deputy ministers will oversee his province's response to COVID-19.
Today, I'm appointing a Deputy Ministers Committee that will be co-chaired by Deputy Minister Laurie Hall from Emergency Management British Columbia, as well as Stephen Brown from the Ministry of Health. This Deputy Ministers Committee will guide a whole government approach to this pandemic and ensure that we are as prepared as we could possibly be. I believe that we're on the right track, but we need to be vigilant, and I want to give British Columbians every confidence that the people here are at your disposal to give you information as it comes forward.
We have updated and are ready to use our BC Pandemic Provincial Coordination Plan as necessary as the situation evolves. What we are not at this point yet, BC is ready and willing to use emergency powers should they become necessary.
U.S. Vice President Mike Pence says 21 people on a cruise ship being held off of San Francisco have tested positive for the coronavirus.
Among those tested, 46 persons were swabbed. 21 of those on the ship tested positive for the coronavirus. 24 tested negative. One test was inconclusive. Again, let me say, 21 individuals on the Grand Princess tested positive. Among those were 19 crew members.
A U.S. pastor who is under quarantine at a hotel in Bethlehem spoke about what he and his church group have experienced after 7 hotel workers were diagnosed with the new coronavirus.
We toured Jerusalem and the old city, Jerusalem, which was a bucket list day for me, being a person of faith. And it was a great day. And then we came back to the hotel, and that night we found out that a tourist from Greece who had stayed at the hotel had gone home to Greece and had a positive test for coronavirus. So they told us that they were going to basically test all of the workers that night, and that the next morning we would probably need to find another hotel because they would be cleaning the hotel. So we got up the next morning, loaded up all of our luggage on our bus, and we took off. And we were on our way to Samaria to tour Samaria. And that's when we got the call. We were just going down the road. We got the call saying that we needed to come back to the hotel, that they had found more positive tests. For some of the workers, so we called our U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, and they told us that we needed to listen to the local officials. So that's what we did. And we went back to the hotel. And that's how we ended up here. We came in and they told us we needed to go to our rooms. They put us all on one floor that they had disinfected and cleaned. So that's what we did, and we went there. And that's where we've been since then.
The controversy surrounding the Lethbridge supervised consumption site is not going away. There are those who support it in our city and those who vehemently oppose it. Lethbridge City Councillor Blaine Hagan stopped by Bridge City News recently to say he's happy to hear that the province is investing millions of dollars more to help with the 4 pillars of addiction.
I've never said shut it down. The concern I have always had was with the operation of it. and how it's operated, the efficiency and the effectiveness of how it's operated. And this review that came out from this panel showed that obviously the cost to per person at this facility as opposed to other facilities is far greater. So I think that validates some of the concerns that I had. I'm really appreciative that this provincial government has stepped up to the plate and they're actually looking at ways to help those struggling with addictions throughout the communities in Alberta. So I just can't say enough.
A new provincial investment of nearly $13 million will aim to create almost 2,100 new treatment spaces over the next few years. Work on the Link Pathway project to connect Lethbridge and Coaldale was discussed at Lethbridge City Council earlier today. Councillors also talked about initiatives involving the popular tourist site Nikki-Yuko Japanese Garden.
The fact that this matter was adjourned 2 weeks and that they're providing the society an opportunity to present the information and answer some of their questions and concerns, in my view, is quite a hopeful sign. And we remain positive that we'll be able to show the value of this project. A space to increase the capacity for the garden to host events, to provide different services. There will be a cafe. In addition, we'll have curated exhibits that will have information regarding the history of the garden and some of the aesthetic elements, as well as providing some history of Japanese Canadians and their role in the community.
Some of Alberta's top cabinet ministers met in Lethbridge over the weekend for a Meet the Ministers gathering hosted by the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce. It was an opportunity to ask questions about the 2020 budget and hear comments from Ministers Travis Taves, Devin Dreeshen, and Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Newdorf.
Firstly, I believe we're hearing that we should stay the course, that we need to continue to ensure that we're making responsible fiscal decisions on behalf of Albertans, and we intend to do that. That's Budget 2020 continues along that track with a plan to balance by 22-23. You know, additional work to do to ensure that we're getting government out of the way in some cases, to ensure that we have the most competitive regulatory environment where businesses can compete globally effectively.
The ministers were hoping events like ours in Lethbridge will keep the lines of communication open to get feedback on how the budget is impacting local businesses. Rallies were held around the world yesterday to celebrate International Women's Day. Here in Lethbridge, a gathering was held by the University of Lethbridge Campus Women's Centre and the Raging Grannies along Mayor McGrath Drive.
We're here today to bring attention to the world, because this is International Women's Day, that we need to keep on the path to equality for women.
So the message this year that we're really trying to get out there is the importance of advocating for marginalized individuals, particularly the homeless individuals here in the Lethbridge community. We're really just trying to make sure individuals feel like they have dignity and that they are valuable. And we're really also just trying to make sure that they feel like they have a voice or they have someone advocating for them. I think it's really important that men get involved with these issues and to really help the women in the community get their voices out there.
There appears to be a lot of pressure on young girls today to have outward beauty. What about on the inside? Renee Peterson is a registered nurse and founder of Beautiful Inside Academy. She has some advice on how moms can best support their daughters.
So the question I often put forth to my moms is, who do you need to be so she can be who she needs to be? So my coaching with the moms is like, where are those areas where you still feel that you need to up level, or those areas that you see in your daughter that she's struggling, does she mirror that from you as well? And so it's not about shaming or blaming, it's just about this exciting exploration of how can we heal that within us as moms so that automatically can give our daughters a different launching pad from.
Catch the full interview with Renee Peterson discussing the importance of supporting our daughters. That's coming up in the second half of our show. Many people who live in the town of Fort Macleod are excited that the new Ghostbusters movie, which was shot there, will be hitting theaters in July. The mayor of Fort Macleod, Brent Fader, says prior to that, a pre-screening event will be taking place in his town.
It's exciting. We got news that we are going to have a pre-screening event in Fort Macleod. Not 100% sure on the details yet, but it's going to be a big event. We're hoping to block off the main street and get a lot of people involved and have some, hopefully some of the actors are able to come out as well, but it's just before the New York or the Los Angeles event.
Mayor Fader will also be discussing the benefits of living in a smaller town. That's coming up in the second half of our show. The Ontario Liberals now have a new leader. He is former Kathleen Wynne cabinet minister Stephen Del Duca. Del Duca won on his first ballot, taking home 59% of the votes. He says he's looking forward to 2022 and is up to the task of defeating Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
It is on your shoulders that we stand, and you will all be, all of you, and the nearly 40,000 members of our party province-wide. You are the foundation of what we will create, and what we will create is a modernized political movement that will hit the ground running, that will win the next election, and deliver progress for the people of Ontario.
Volunteer teams from Samaritan's Purse have been helping people trying to put their lives back together in Tennessee who were affected by the state's devastating tornadoes. Twisters tore through, creating a destructive path close to 200 kilometers long, causing severe damage to 3 counties.
On Tuesday night, a series of tornadoes came through Tennessee. So this storm came unexpectedly through the night. As you can imagine, it was a very traumatic event. The storms that came through left a lot of devastation. The damages here are extensive. There are numerous homes that are completely destroyed, and so we want to come in and care for these people in their time of need. But we want to come not only and help them with physical needs of trying to help them get back to where they can live in their home with a tarp on the roof or cleaning the debris out of the yard, but we also want to let them know that there's a God who loves them, that cares for them, sent his son to die for them, and to offer that spiritual and emotional help as well. Amen. So we need your help. We need your support. We need your prayers to care for this community that's hurting so badly.
Tragedy and destruction did not deter members of the Mount Bethel Missionary Baptist Church as they held their service yesterday in a tent in a parking lot. The congregation is still reeling following Tuesday's devastating tornadoes.
I had left and one of the neighbors called and said, your roof is in on your church. That neighbor is a jokester, but I decided to get up and come over anyway, only to find out he was accurate in his assessment and not knowing that the building, well, both buildings were totally destroyed. I immediately began to pray and ask God, what do I say in moments like this? And God spoke clearly as I'm speaking to you now. You have to help while hurting.
Newfoundland and Labrador's Brad Gushu beat Alberta's Brendan Botcher 7-3 to win the Tim Hortons Brier last night. It was the 3rd national title in 4 years for the St. John's team.
It means a ton. Obviously we live in the best country in the world and the best curling nation in the world. So when you get to wear that maple leaf and represent your country at the World Curling Championships, it's a huge honor, and we know what it takes to get there. And that's probably the biggest part of the satisfaction of wearing it, that you had to get through an event like this. I imagine the whole province is, certainly the sporting community that followed this is going to be pretty pumped for us. And really excited to get home and see my wife and kids, number one, but to see all of our supporters and kind of embrace it over the next couple of days and really enjoy this. I think over the next week I'm gonna indulge a little and really enjoy this win. It was hard fought and it means a lot to us.
Congrats going out to the Gushu foursome winning this year's Brier. We had a nice sunny day in southwestern Alberta, but cool and colder temperatures and snow are on the horizon. Complete weather details are coming up. It was great to see the sun shining again today. Tonight, mainly clear with a low near -9. Tomorrow, just a few clouds developing with a high near 7. Wednesday, rain mixed with snow and a high of 4. Clouds mixed with sun on Thursday and a high near 3 degrees. A cold front moves in on Friday, bringing clouds, snow, and a high of only -10. Even colder, -15 on Saturday with more of the white stuff. Sunday, a good chance of flurries developing with a high of -8. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 5 degrees and an average low of -8. The highest temperature in the state was recorded in 2004 at 20 degrees. The record low was -34 in 2002. Sunrise was at 7:57, sunset at 7:26. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across the country now. Victoria will have lots of rain and a high of 8. Expect rain as well in Vancouver with a high near 5. Lots of clouds mixed with sun in Calgary tomorrow and a high of 7. Increasing clouds and 5 degrees for Edmonton. Sunshine and 4 is on tap for Regina. Just a few clouds and a high of 2 degrees for Saskatoon. It should be mainly sunny and a high of -4 in Winnipeg on Tuesday. Periods of rain and a high of 10 degrees in Toronto. Rain and 8 degrees for Ottawa. Montreal had a freezing rain warning today. Tomorrow expect more rain with a high of 4 degrees. Periods of freezing rain and a high of 0 for Fredericton, New Brunswick. A chance of rain mixed with snow and a high of 5 degrees for Halifax. Periods of snow mixed with ice pellets for Charlottetown PEI tomorrow and a high near the freezing mark. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect a partly cloudy day and a high of -7 for tomorrow. A collapse in oil prices triggered a plunge in the energy sector today as Canada's main stock index fell more than 1,000 points in trading earlier today. That's its lowest level in 14 months. The loonie also took a nosedive, as did the price of oil. Crude oil dropped almost $10 to just over $31 a barrel. That's not good for the Alberta economy, as the Kenney government was banking on over $55 per barrel to meet budget. A complete look at the markets is coming up in just a moment. Calgary-based Ensign Energy Services is reporting a fourth quarter loss of $71.6 million. That's down from a profit of $154.8 million in the same quarter of 2018. The oilfield services company revenue rose from $346 to almost $376 million. Revenue for the full year totaled $1.59 billion. That's up from $1.16 billion in 2018. Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation is reporting that the annual pace of housing starts fell. It dropped by 3,962 units the past 2 months. The total drop was just over 210,000 units and was not as bad as economists had feared. Multi-unit urban starts, including condos and townhomes, fell 6.1%. Urban starts of detached homes rose 11.9%. Jack Dorsey is going to be staying on as the CEO of Twitter. There were reports that Elliott Management was planning to nominate 4 people to Twitter's board to oust Dorsey. This morning, however, Twitter announced it reached an investment deal with Silver Lake and Elliott. Silver Lake will make a $1 billion investment in Twitter to get a seat on the board. Twitter's value currently sits at $4.4 billion. Elliott Management, which owns about 4% of Twitter stock, will also get a seat on the board. Dorsey left Twitter to start payments company Square, but returned in 2015 and now splits his time between the two companies. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The markets took another beating today with the coronavirus. $218 billion in Canadian stocks were lost. The TSX was down 1,660 points on the day to 14,514. The Dow was down 2,013 points to 23,851. The S&P 500 was down 225 points to 2746. And the NASDAQ was down almost 625 points to 7950. A tough day on the markets. Oil was down $11.04 to $30.24 per barrel. Natural gas was up 11 cents to $1.82. Gold was down 27 cents to $16.80 an ounce. Silver was down 2 cents to $16.99 an ounce. Wheat is at $237 per metric ton. Barley's at $232. Canola's at $464. And corn is at $259 per metric ton. Live cattle were down $2.90 to $102.85. Feeder cattle were down $4.50 to $125.55, and lean hogs were down $2.93 to $63. The Canadian dollar rebounded slightly at the end of trading today to finish the day at $72.99 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Alberta now has 7 confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus. One of the confirmed cases is a man in his 40s from the Edmonton area. Although he recently traveled to the United States, health officials say his infection is more likely to have come from a travel companion who had been a passenger on the Grand Princess cruise ship. The companion is now a confirmed case in BC. Across Canada, at least 69 people now have COVID-19, with 27 confirmed cases in BC, 34 in Ontario, 4 in Quebec, and as you've heard here on Bridge City News, 7 confirmed here in Alberta. So what are the advantages of living in a small town? More affordable housing, a 15-minute drive to work, not a lot of traffic. Coming up, we chat with Fort Macleod Mayor Brent Fader about what his town offers. That interview is on deck. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The Kinsman Club of Lethbridge invites you to their 6th annual Mardi Gras Charity Gala on Saturday, March 14th at the Sandman Signature Lethbridge Lodge. The evening begins at 5 p.m., where you can enjoy the ambiance of the French Quarter, which will also feature a 5-course Cajun meal, games and entertainment, a silent auction, dance, and much more. Tickets are $80 and can be purchased at eventbrite.ca. Proceeds to go towards the Ready, Set, Go Back to School Fair. For event details, visit the Kinsman Club of Lethbridge's Facebook page. The Lethbridge Association of the Blind provides numerous activities for the blind and visually impaired in the Lethbridge area. These events include dinners with entertainment, theatrical performances, local museum tours, bowling, and much more. For information or to volunteer, call 403-942-1677 or email brownwj@shaw.ca. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
There are some beautiful towns and cities across southern Alberta. Some are seeing populations dwindling, while other ones are growing. Often, they're places with friendly people and more affordable cost of living. And yet, they can also have similar challenges with drugs and crime. Joining me now to talk about it is Brent Fader. He's the mayor of Fort Macleod, Alberta. Welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you for having us.
So Brent, a lot of people know Fort Macleod because you get some of these big name Hollywood pictures being shot in your town. Most recently, Ghostbusters. Tell me a bit about that.
Ghostbusters, yeah, that was a great event. A lot of activity, a lot of people in town, a lot of Main Street being interrupted, Empress Theater getting blown up. Yeah.
What? Oh no.
Yeah, it's so pretty amazing.
What kind of money does that bring to the town?
It's hard to put a number on it always because there's so many other contractors coming in and so on, but good activity. Yeah, and overall the community appreciated it. It's not easy, but for a small town, it's quite interrupting.
Did some people say, you know what, yeah, that disrupted my business. I couldn't get to work taking the usual route because some of the streets were blocked off. Did you get some complaints from the locals?
The site people are very good, actually. They work with the businesses. They try to coordinate as well as they can. So overall, they do their best to try to minimize the impact.
Now, there was a Kevin Costner movie shot just before Ghostbusters,
yeah, there
right?
was. Just, I think it was in May last year.
Did you get to meet Kevin Costner?
I did not.
Well, how
no,
come?
It was close. It was close.
Was
we had it all set up, but...
So he was in and then out.
But he made his rounds around town, visited the Empress Theater, the Fort Museum, and a few other places. So, oh yeah, he was definitely showed his face around, and that was appreciated.
Now, there's a special premiere showing, going back to Ghostbusters for just a moment, that's coming up this summer. Tell me a bit about that.
Yes, it's exciting. We got news that we are going to have a pre-screening event in Fort Macleod. Not 100% sure on the details yet, but it's going to be a big event. We're hoping to block off the main street and get a lot of people involved and have some, hopefully some of the actors are able to come out as well, but it's just before the New York or the Los Angeles event, so we might not be able to get them out.
Now, Brent, the latest Alberta budget that came out poses some challenges to some of the towns and the cities across the province here, and especially for, like I said, the municipalities. I understand you had to lay off 2 peace officers?
Yes, so the rural crime initiative that the province came out with is a little bit before the budget was released, right? So that came out, and it's always been a discussion among rural communities because communities under 5,000 do not pay for policing with the RCMP. So it's always been a bit of a contentious item, like why don't we pay? So,
and what's the population of Fort Macleod now?
3,000. Okay. So most communities our size, well, yeah, it's appreciated we had the RCMP in our communities at no cost to our town. Mm-hmm. So this new proposal by the province was, well, we're going to charge more, but you're also going to get more. And so with the increased cost to the town that we would have to pay, our program, the community police officer program, came at risk.
Okay, and how much are you hoping to save? Was it 400 or 480,000?
Well, that's the total policing budget after 3 years that we would have had to pay. So we're hoping with the CPO program being eliminated, it's around 200, 250.
Now you're bringing in a bylaw officer instead?
Yeah, exactly. So strictly dealing with community bylaws, right? So CPOs had a little bit more permissions under the Act. And so that's why this is, we've seen this as better fitting for our community for sure.
But what about some of the rural crime and some of the issues when it comes to drugs and crime? And Fort Macleod, we'll see some of that as well, not just here in Lethbridge. Wouldn't CPOs help a lot more than a bylaw officer to keep people safe?
Oh, absolutely they would. But that has its limitations too. So it's not everything. Policing has been a challenge in crime in our community. Seems to be at a crossroads for good reasons, but also bad reasons. So it seems to be the end of the road for a lot of people that are looking for some criminal activity. So that's where our community has been challenged. And for example, our Citizens on Patrol group in Fort Macleod is very active.
Kind of like our watch program here in Lethbridge?
Yeah, exactly. They're out traveling the streets at night, keeping the eyes out for whatever activity there may be working closely with the RCMP.
So what are some of the drug and crime issues that you're facing in Fort Macleod? Here we have opioid, meth problems. You know, there's a lot of crime as a result. People's bikes being stolen, vehicles being broken into. What about Fort Macleod?
Similar, very similar. It's kind of strange. I've talked to other mayors in our community in southern Alberta, and they wouldn't say they have the same amount of criminal activity as we might. We are heavily involved with the RCMP in watching and scanning and ensuring we are doing our best to reduce this amount of activity. In Fort Macleod, I think a lot of it has to do with its location. A lot of it's outside, people coming in. Some of it's quite organized, for sure.
What kinds of resources or programs are being used to help deal with this right now?
Well, like I said, the Citizens on Patrol is a big one.
And they're all volunteers, correct?
Correct, yes. So going out tonight, for example, I'm going out for a little ride, and starts at midnight. And
so if you see something, you call the RCMP right away?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Don't get out of the vehicle. Don't try to engage, but just be an observer. So, and a lot of community members are seeing the need and value in that, for sure.
What about the homeless issue? A lot of towns, a lot of cities are dealing with that across southern Alberta right now. How is Fort Macleod helping the homeless?
Well, that's a good question. Foothill Centre in Fort Macleod is probably a little known gem in our area of southern Alberta. It's a detox center, but it also works with the homeless. It's got shelter beds. For a small town, it's pretty amazing to have that bit of a resource. So they're able to house any homeless overnight, and so that's something we've really valued. We're also actively working to get more homeless or more housing for our community. It's hard to attract, and that's the biggest challenge, I would say, in rural communities, is harder to attract bigger investors into a small town when there is a big need.
Yeah, some people do like to move to smaller towns, though, because it's more affordable, right?
Yes.
Like a house here in Lethbridge for $350, maybe going for, I don't know, maybe $200 or $250 in Fort Macleod.
Yes.
And the property taxes are lower. The drive's not quite, I mean, it's not really that bad. It's 15, 20 minutes from anywhere in Lethbridge. But
no, it's always longer towards Fort Macleod than the other way.
Right. Okay. What else does Fort Macleod offer? Why else would people want to move to your town?
Well, I always look at the community as it's close to a lot of things, right? You're close to the mountains, you're close to Calgary Airport, you're close to Lethbridge. It's got a lot of resources in our town, a lot of great businesses, a lot of great jobs. The main street is vibrant.
Especially when they're shooting films, right?
Especially when they're shooting films. And last summer, in the last 2 years, they've had the Market on Main, which is a very active little event in our town. Usually, most evenings on a Thursday night in Fort Macleod, there's good 500 people that are wandering down Main Street. It's closed off, and there's good up to 40 merchants. So things like that make it a very good community feel, right?
Now let's talk about the unemployment rate. Lethbridge and Medicine Hat is around 4.6%, which is substantially lower than Calgary. I believe there's 7.2, Edmonton 7.7, Red Deer is 8.6%, right? Tied in heavily to the oil and gas sector. What about Fort Macleod?
I don't have a stat on it to say that we are what percentage, but overall it's got a lot of great industry, manufacturing, trucking, the auction market.
So agriculture is quite strong, right?
Some mechanic shops, welding shops. So overall it's a pretty active little community business-wise.
How else can you attract some business owners? You mentioned before it's a challenge, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Maybe the tax base, tax rate is a little more affordable? Like, how can you really attract those businesses to come to Fort Macleod?
A lot of it's building relationships, I would say, gaining a little bit of trust. A lot of times small towns aren't looked at as an opportunity. I would argue that for sure. There's opportunity. There's plenty of available lots and businesses that are active, right? So to attract, we're working on some incentives. The land is easier to develop. It's not as restrictive. So we try as best as we can as a council to encourage development, encourage conversations, and just think outside the box overall.
What about some of the tourist attractions as well?
Yeah.
That you have in Fort Macleod? Let's talk about some of those.
Yeah, so I think we all know Fort Macleod's named after the fort. It used to be the original location of a fort, and that's currently still active in museum in Fort Macleod, the Fort Museum. I'm also on the board for the Fort Museum, and it stays a very active little place. They try to get school students in and try to make a good picture of what it was like when the RCMP settled in Fort Macleod area.
Was it like the Northwest Mounted Police, I think, way back when, right?
Originally.
Now, outside of being the mayor of Fort Macleod, you also are a businessman.
Correct.
What are some of the businesses you're involved in?
So our two companies is Structural Truss and Forma Steel. And so they're regional companies that supply over Western Canada. So those are, I would say, good businesses to be in small communities because you don't need to sell as much in your community, but you can ship anywhere anyone else can. So.
Do you have any rivalries with any other towns, villages, or hamlets around Fort Macleod?
Oh, that's always a fun one. It's always good to chat with the other mayors to see where they're at. I wouldn't say we have any rivalries.
Come on, spill the beans. Nanton, all those people in Nanton.
Oh, that's Jen.
Right?
So, no,
but they got a great candy store.
They do.
And the Bomber Museum.
Oh, and the Bomber Museum.
Right?
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good place too.
It is.
Uh-huh.
Outside of attracting more business into Fort Macleod, and maybe sometimes budget cuts impacting the municipality as a whole, what other challenges do you face in your town?
I think it's the size of the community can be hard just to engage more with outside people. We don't always have the experience and the resources to be able to advocate and get projects moving. So I think that becomes hard. But overall, we do our best as a small town to, and even my position, for example, it's not full-time, so I'm not always out here in the news and doing great things, but so it can be limiting, but overall, we love our town. I've lived there all my life, and I don't know, I have no desire to be anywhere else. It's a great place
How many
to
people
be.
have left Calgary? That's my hometown, by the way. Said, you know what? I'm tired of living in a city of over 1 million people, 1.2, 1.3, whatever it's at. I'm going to Fort Macleod.
Yeah. No, a lot of people will look at Fort Macleod and the small communities as bedroom communities. Right. And lately I've argued that. And it's like, no, we're not a bedroom community. I think Lethbridge is a bedroom community for Fort Macleod. Oh. There's probably more people that live in Lethbridge and work in Fort Macleod than the other way around.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting.
Brett, you have a bit of a concern when it comes to new home construction of Fort Macleod. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so overall, Fort Macleod has experienced quite a bit of real estate sales in the last little while. Like our listings has dropped to lowest levels I've seen in many years. And largely due to new people moving into our community from wherever. But it becomes a little bit of a challenge. How do we attract builders that are interested in building smaller homes in smaller communities for our residents? So it's been a bit of a challenge. Some of it's building code related, I would say. Like there's a lot to keep up with building code changes and all the different requirements all the time. So in some ways it gets left up to the experts, the bigger builders, and it becomes hard to attract them into a smaller community. It's just too far a lot of times for them and too much work and too many unknowns.
So they're okay with Coaldale, Colhurst, maybe Nobleford, but Fort Macleod's a little too far from Lethbridge?
Yeah, that's what it appears, right? And it's a little too far from Calgary and it's a little too far. So in some ways that sends a good message that we're kind of a town on our own. But on the flip side, it becomes harder to attract more people to our community if there's not enough interest in building some smaller homes, at least starter homes to get started. And so we look forward to looking at ways that we can improve that for sure.
So outside of agriculture, what else does Fort Macleod offer? And some of the tourist attractions, what else is there?
Actually, it's probably more leaning towards manufacturing than it would be ag.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so overall, that's probably the bigger. We do also have the healthcare center and the seniors' homes. Those are big employers. The Bovary Exports, just east of us.
Do sometimes people say, I can't get into Chinook Regional Hospital, I'm going to Fort Macleod?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah?
Yeah, go to Fort Macleod instead of Lethbridge.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Brent Fader, Mayor of Fort Macleod, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you joining me in studio today.
I so appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Today's society puts a lot of pressure on young girls to have outward beauty. The Photoshop beauty pics on glossy magazines likely contribute to that. But what about beauty on the inside, which I feel is a lot more important? Joining me now in studio to talk about it is Renee Peterson. She's a registered nurse and the founder of the Beautiful Inside Academy. Welcome back to BCN, Renee.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Beautiful Inside Academy, what is it all about?
Well, Beautiful Inside Academy is something that I'm so deeply passionate about. I have been running this academy for 13 years, and it's a sacred place for young women to come and to have the exploration of that inner self, to develop those inner tools, inner strategies, inner mindsets, to launch them to the next level of who they say they want to be. So, yeah.
Why is beauty on the inside so important?
Well, I believe that once you're connected to that place, I mean, you know as well as I do, right? You talk to someone, you see them, and then what actually comes out of them is what makes them actually truly beautiful. And so I think when they truly identify it on the inside, it just really helps them even appreciate the external even more, and just helps them connect to the beauty of their life, the beauty of who they can be, the beauty in others. So it's just fun, foundational work as far as I'm concerned.
I have a daughter who's 21 years of age. She's a beautiful young woman, inside and outside. And when she was younger, the preteen, sometimes the awkward years, she would always say, I'm not good enough, I'm not beautiful enough, and I'm encouraging her, loving her, praying for her. I'm like, yes, you are, you're beautiful. But it didn't resonate with her. No matter what her mother or I said, it was like almost strangers saying, you're beautiful. Oh, I must be beautiful. Right. But when mom and dad said it didn't really resonate with her. Why do you think that is?
Well, I know it's kind of that adolescent brain, right? Like they just thinking, you're my parents, you have to love me, you have to say that about me. And they're already in that identity kind of questioning, going, who am I worthy, am I lovable, am I enough? And so that's where I tell the parents, hey, that's okay, that's normal. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, but that's where I come in, and I get to partner with you as a mom, partner with you as a dad, and support you in installing those beliefs that you so wish that your daughter would have at that time in her life. And so, yeah, it does. I actually kind of love it, because it's just like I can also help make the relationship better. They're like, oh, wow, yeah, my mom says that, or my dad says that. And so, okay, yeah, maybe that does have some clout. So it's really kind of magical at the same time as I do that inner work with them, help bridge and build those beautiful connections and foundations with parents as well.
So self-confidence is also very important, vital for our young people today, especially young girls. But social media can sometimes wreak havoc on a lot of young girls and their confidence.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, we're in this age where everything's blowing up, and parents are parenting in an age of social media that we've never experienced before, right? So you look at TikTok, the predators, the research all around that stuff. And so along with that, yeah, I mean, we have so many filters now on social media, and so these young women are seeing these images and thinking everybody's perfect. And that's a word that I hear a lot in my academy. Well, perfect, or this is perfect, or I look over at her, right? And so it's just really helping them disconnect from some of that. And like I tell them, you run your own race, like get like the blinders on like a horse, and what are you focused on, and who do you want to be? And when you're looking over here and comparison, because that's what that breeds, as well as also breeds like bullying. And so people just think, oh, well, I can say something behind a screen, and well, whatever. And so the pain that happens, or that they've learning how to communicate, right? They're not learning this face-to-face or the power of communication. And so it's just this back and forth all on the media sites.
So how do you really explain, Renee, to a young person that what these trolls are saying on Twitter or Instagram is really irrelevant?
Yeah, well, it's...
And it's not that important.
True, and I think
it's keyboard warriors, right?
Well, yeah, right. That's very well said. And so I think what it boils down to is I really help them see, like, that through the mindset work, that they get to decide what they believe. And so I teach them to ask those pertinent questions, and once again, to take their focus off of that. Like, why would you spend so many hours trolling anyways and giving your time and energy to that? And so where do you want your focus to be, and who do you want to be, and where do you want your time to be? And then they're kind of like, oh yeah, well, that drains me to be doing that. And so just helping them develop those success habits and those strategies to not even be as tempted to go there.
How important is it for a young girl to have a mentor?
I think it's huge. I think it's everything. Like, I think you look at the resiliency model, and I think that our teenagers, they need a team. Like, if they need a counselor, great, let's get them in for a counselor. If they need a coach, let's get them with a coach. Like, let's buoy them up and support them in any way that they can. So they need that person that can be strong enough to also not buy into the lies that they're believing about themselves, or also buy into some of their manipulation, right? Where they're just kind of like, oh, well, that's how it is. But someone who's a strong, confident woman who can look at them and go, no, I'm going to actually challenge you on that. I'm going to stand in this space with you. I'm going to hold grace for you, and I'm going to hold you to a higher level of who I know you say you want to be. And then they're like, oh, okay.
Are there certain limits of what a mentor can and cannot do? And the reason I ask that is, a parent myself, a lot of times my kids would want to go down a certain path. I know this path will lead to destruction.
Yeah.
They're going to fall flat on their face because I went down a similar path when I was their age.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, it's not going to end well for you, right? So please don't go down the path, but you still have to let go, let God, let them do it. And sometimes they fail. It's like, oh my goodness, they're like, you know what? Dad, Mom, you were right.
Right, right.
So with the mentor, do you have to allow them to go through a similar path, similar experience?
Well, yeah, like, I mean, I can mentor them through those things, but if that's who they're saying they don't want to be, like, I don't know, it seems like I have some clout there, right? And so I'm not saying that they don't make mistakes, and sometimes failure is our greatest teacher, right? So I say to my girls, it's not about failing, but it's about never quitting. And so, like, what do you learn from those mistakes? And so, yeah, I mean, helping them understand that, hey, these will be the choices, but the choices also have consequences. You can make the choice, but you also don't get to choose the consequence. And so I think when you explain it to them in certain ways and help them see bigger picture, sometimes they do take a step back. And I mean, really, let's be honest, right? Because as parents, when we're saying don't do this, don't do that, when they're trying to assert their independence and they want to find their way, they feel like by saying, well, I'm going to do that, right? They feel like that's
sometimes in rebellion.
In
perhaps,
rebellion, right?
Yeah.
But I think as a coach and somebody who can support a parent and saying, okay, well, I understand why your mom would say that, because let's have a look at this. This is how this could play itself out. And then, you know, get them out of that defiance, but get them more into alliance. And then they're kind of like, okay, I do want to do that. What's good for me?
Renee, how can we give our girls more of the tools they need to succeed in life today?
Well, I believe that's part of sending them to me.
There you go.
But I do believe, like, as parents today, what I kind of see as a weakness is that we want to be their friends, right? We want them to like us, and we're so much invested in wanting them to like us that sometimes it's hard for us to step in our full empowerment and say, okay, this, I want you to look at this. I want to challenge that mindset. Or if they're complaining and being in complete victim mode all the time, instead of us trying to fix it and make it better, to just actually, as a mom, as a dad, you know, be in our own sense of self and go, okay, well, I get that. You can choose to continue to think that. But then this is how you're going to continue to feel. So you get to decide.
You know, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, Renee, because a lot of times as a dad, I'm a problem solver. I want to fix it.
Totally.
And then my wife says, no, you're not supposed to fix it. Just leave it alone. But I want to. I want to help. I know I can help, right?
Right.
And so that's frustrating for me sometimes as a father.
Yeah. But it's also not about stepping back, because sometimes I see parents just step away and they'll be like, oh, well, they're 18, they're 16. I guess they got to just learn it. And I don't buy into that philosophy either. I buy into, okay, I am that person, and I'm going to stand there in that space, and I'm going to hold that space for them. And if they're going to cry and whine or whatever, then I'm just going to still be there, and I'm still going to coach them through it and just be like, hey, well, you get to choose, or how could you get yourself out of that, or how could you think of that differently, or what else could that mean? So as that parent standing in that space and not letting them be the victim, or not letting them manipulate you, right? Or as a parent going, okay, wow, that's bringing up my childhood thing that I wanted to fit in, so maybe I'm compromising and letting my daughter, you know, go do these things because I didn't get to do those things. And so it's a whole complexity. And so I work with parents and teenage girls to kind of just help them create the tapestry of that beautiful relationship and how to dance together. So
how can we help our young people today learn how to develop good habits, not bad habits?
Well, I mean, I think that takes, as a parent, modeling it as well, right? I mean, how much time as a parent do we spend on social media and wasting our time and energy? Or, you know, how much of time as parents do they see us, like, not getting up or laying our stuff out the night before, or using a day timer, or being committed to our goals, committed to our dreams, committed to our personal work? So a lot of it is modeling. And then that's where I just love getting our kids and our teenage girls, especially in front of people like me that can say, hey, these are decisions of destiny, and if you start implementing this, or how are you going to think about this, or carve out that spiritual time for yourself, yourself so that you can really be connected on the inside, so that you can be full of purpose, and that you can, you know, when something comes, you can have been like, okay, no, I know how I'm going to handle that, or this is my goal, or this is my focus. So it really all starts internally. And so getting them really connected to those places, and as parents, you know, carving out that space and that energy and those discussions around that. So
Are you a parent yourself?
I absolutely
How many
am.
kids?
I have 2 beautiful daughters. So,
Okay.
Yes.
So tell me about some of the challenges you faced as a parent with 2 young, beautiful women.
Yeah. Well, they're 25 and 23 now. So.
Okay. Maybe
But
many years ago.
Many years ago.
Maybe 15,
yeah, I
you know,
don't know.
15, 18 years ago.
But really, I think for them, sometimes I've gone back and said to them, you know, how did you do this, or why this? And I mean, it was because I
What worked and what didn't, right?
Totally, yeah. And it was because I modeled it. I mean, they saw me, and I'm not perfect. And if I wasn't perfect at something, I definitely would admit that and say, okay, well, let's work on this together, or this will be something that will really move us forward. And we kind of get the family on board. And I mean, it was just the 3 of us for 17 years. So yeah, it's just really boils down to what are you going to put into practice as a family on a day-to-day basis, and having those discussions about what it really does mean to be successful. And
did you use some of those experiences as a parent to model some of the programs with Beautiful Inside Academy?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me about some of those programs that you offer.
Well, I do group coaching. So I run a group coaching academy for 13 weeks twice a year. And I do private one-on-one coaching with teenage girls all year long. I also do events and have been working with moms, and have been coaching some moms as well. So how can we do that? How can we help our relationship with our daughter better? So that's a lot of what I'm offering right now.
What advice would you give to a lot of moms today to really strengthen that relationship with their daughters?
Okay, I love that question. So the question I often put forth to my moms is, who do you need to be so she can be who she needs to be? And so it is like Dr. Christian Northrup kind of talks about it like this. It's kind of like osmosis. So when we're engaged in personal work, when we're modeling healthy relationships, when we're modeling healthy self-talk, when we're modeling healthy body image, so all of those things. So my coaching with the moms is like, where are those areas where you still feel that you need to up level, or those areas that you see in your daughter that she's struggling? Does she mirror that from you as well? And so it's not about shaming or blaming. It's just about this exciting exploration of how can we heal that within us as moms, so that automatically can give our daughters a different launching pad.
How can we help our daughters achieve their full potential in life?
Well, I truly believe it's mindset work. It's not being the victim. It's like really helping them.
Being the victor, right?
Yeah, exactly. Being the victor and unpacking what are those gifts, and what is your purpose, and what are those decisions of destiny, and how to give them those inner strength and those inner tools when those storms come, and to not be seeking so much external validation, but teaching them how to validate from within, and teaching them how to connect to their spiritual source, and teaching them how to access, you know, all of those giftings on the inside, and then we'll see what strong young women do, right? Like right now I have...
And they could be mentors to other young women, right?
Absolutely.
I've been where you are.
Totally.
Let me show you the way.
Absolutely. And that's kind of my mission. Like I have 19 powerhouse teenage girls in my academy right now, and I just was like, you watch out for them, because these are our future leaders.
That's awesome. Now you have mother-daughter events as well. Tell me a bit about those.
Yeah, I do. So lots of times I'll have the moms, and then I'll have mothers and daughters come together, and it's just about how do we really strengthen this relationship? How do we bond together? Because at the end of the day, like it is such a sacred, beautiful relationship. And I know for me, being a mom has just been one of the greatest gifts, and one of the things that I just want to shout from the rooftops that I feel like I've been able to do so well. And so bringing them together in that space of honor, and just having the girls understand that this woman right beside you, I mean, she was your age once too, and they're like, really? It's like, oh, I never thought of it that way, right? But you know, it's like access her wisdom, like let her speak into your life. Or girls, you know, how can you look at this differently? You know, when your mom's telling you, hey, this is what I want for you, and then just teaching the moms how to talk to the girls, and just doing a lot of that work so that they can see each other a little bit more clearly.
What can parents learn from their kids?
So much.
Because I mean, as parents,
yeah.
we like to teach our kids lots, right? So.
Oh, I think that our kids are our greatest teachers. And so the wounding or the things that they're dealing with, it's just like, and the way they're reacting, sometimes it does have something to do with us. It has to do with like, okay, well, how have I allowed that behavior? You know, what do I need to heal in me? Or like, for example, like when my daughter turned 18, you know, I was just like a lot more paranoid because that's where some stuff had happened to me. And so, but yet that was a gift because it was like, okay, Mama Bear, time to heal that. And so then I can graciously say to my daughter, wow, I'm realizing this. And sorry if I've been like overprotective, but, and then that bonded us closer together. And so it's just a beautiful, beautiful mirror if we choose to look at it that way.
Renee Peterson with Beautiful Insight Academy, thanks so much for joining me in studio today.
Thank you.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.